Hey there everybody, welcome to AutoBears, and this is the Audi Q5 Sportback. Now it's quite hard to believe, but the Q5 has been with us since 2008 and has been a massive success for the German brand. It's definitely one of those cars that hit the ground running because it looked amazing, it was practical, it drove brilliantly, and it stood out in the executive car park. Now, more than 15 years later, I've got this, the Q5 Sportback. Yes, Audi have given the Q5 the Sportback treatment, but not only that, under the bonnet, I've got a diesel engine. So I'm going to answer two big questions. Number one, what's the new Q5 like? And number two, in a world where everyone's turning to electrification or hybridization, yes, granted this is a mild hybrid, is there still a place for diesel? Stick with me to find out. Now, when it comes to the Q5's design, like a fine wine, I think this has aged beautifully when it comes to its styling. It just seemed to tick all the boxes when it was launched back in 2008, and Audi really haven't had to do much. They've just had to kind of sharpen it up where it needed it. We've still got the big grille at front, we've got all the little chrome inserts, we've got the traditional headlight clusters, we've got the matrix LED lights on here, as well as the dynamic indicators, which do a little bit of a show at night. And just overall, it's a really good looking executive SUV. However, I don't think the Sportback works with the Q5. I prefer the design of the regular SUV. I don't know, for some reason, it just doesn't seem as balanced as other cars in the model lineup. But you let me know in the comment section below, because that is just my preference. And also on this S-Line trim, we've got 19-inch alloy wheels. They do look really good. They are a bit of a bugger to clean, I will admit, but surprisingly, they don't actually look that big in the arch there, when we've got quite a chunky sidewall to the tyre. So that should bode well for the ride quality later on in the review. But you let me know what you think of the Q5's Sportback styling in the comment section below. Do you really like it, or like me, you feel it's not as good in terms of its looks compared to other Audis which have the Sportback design? But on that note, I think it's time we leave the exterior of the Q5 and see what it's like on the inside. Sat in the front of the Q5, you are greeted by a very comfortable, really nicely designed and beautifully well screwed together interior. This is a really lovely place to be, especially on a long journey. Now, because this is a mid-sized SUV, getting in and out of the Q5 is really easy because of that raised seating position. You've also got a grab handle there to help you get in if you do suffer from any kind of mobility issues. And then once you're sat in the driver's seat, you find that the seats themselves are very comfortable. They do hold a big bear like me in place. However, considering this car costs over £50,000, there's no electric adjustment. You have to go for the top of the range version of the Q5. So it's manual adjustment only, but I have got electric lumbar adjustment. So at least that's something. And then when it comes to interior quality, this is another highlight of the Q5. We've got our soft touch plastics on top of the dash. It is technically soft touch on top of the doors. However, it does kind of sound like hard plastic, but it is soft. And then we've got real metal trim here on the center console, piano black plastic. Yes, it is prone to fingerprints and smudging. And we've got metal trim here as well on the dashboard. So it really is a well screwed together interior, and even the hard scratchy plastic feels of a very decent quality. This is, like I said, a really lovely place to be. So yeah, when you get yourself into the Q5, first impressions are really positive. It's a lovely interior that's really well screwed together and feels like a proper Audi. Cubby spaces in the Q5 are actually pretty good, and quite quirky as well. Now when it comes to the door pockets, they are actually of a really decent size and shape. You can get a medium to large size bottle of drink in there, and although they're not actually lined with any fabric, they are rubber lined, so loose items shouldn't make too much noise. Now here on the center console up front, we've got a little rubberized area as well. It's not big enough to put your phone there, but you could perhaps put your wallet in there, which is really handy. And then just behind there, we've got a little lid, which if I lift up, unveils another little cubby space. Again, it is rubber lined. Now that could be perfect for putting the key in, or perhaps a little tiny brownie you want to keep hidden away. And then next to that, we have got a little kind of tray area, which is again rubber lined. I am very impressed with this. Now it's not the most kind of useful. You can't really put your phone or your key in there, but it's definitely handy if you want to perhaps put a pen in there. And then just behind there, we have got two cup holders. They are of a decent size and shape. We have got some very good plastic grippers in there, and they are rubber lined as well. But you can actually cover it and unveil the wireless charging pad, which I really do like. And yes, your phone just fits on there nice and easy. And what I like as well is that you can just slide it back so your phone can't be seen, and then you can just put your drinks in as you're going along. Now underneath the center armrest, we got a bit of additional space. Again, it is rubber lined, and we got a USB-C charging input in there. And one thing I do like with the center armrest, being a typical VW group car, is you can slide it forward and back, and also lift it up as well for a long journey, which I really do like, and is yeah, very much appreciated. And then finally, we have got the glove box, which is lockable because I have got the storage pack on this car, and it's actually of a really decent size and shape. It is lined with fabric. We've got a little pen holder there as well, with a couple of little areas there where you can perhaps put a couple of items in out of the way. But yeah, I really do like that. And even the book pack is not that big, so it's a really usable and decent space in the glove box. And as I mentioned, it is lockable because I have got the storage pack on this particular car. So yeah, when it comes to storage spaces here on the Q5, I'm really impressed. Now, when it comes to the Q5's interior design and button layout, it is a little bit old school, but that's not a bad thing. It has a really nice ergonomic feel about it. And the thing about Audi interiors is that you can't really compare the designs. I mean, for example, on the Q4 e-tron, the full electric vehicle, their infotainment system is kind of set into the dash. And if you look at something like an Audi A8, well, you've got a second screen down here to operate the dual zone climate control. So what I love on the Q5 is that it has got a very modern and traditional setup. We've got the 10.1-inch infotainment system set high up on the dash. It is touchscreen only. We've got the dual zone climate control, which are all physical buttons, and I love the tactility of the buttons as well. It feels really nicely damped, and even these little buttons underneath are actually touch sensitive, so you know what function that you're going to be operating, especially if you're driving at night. Then below there we got a few extra buttons. Now these do things like your self-parking, park assist, you've got your hill descent control, turning off the infotainment system, and also your drive mode select. And then below there we've got your 12-volt socket, USB-A charging input, as well as your engine start-stop. We've got another little rotary dial here on the center console, which does the volume and change in track. I really love the fact that it is a physical knob and not this touch-sensitive thing we've seen on other Audis. And then we've got your physical grab handle for the gear shift, as well as your auto hold and electric handbrake. And then on the steering wheel, on the left-hand side, we have got your driver data display system, so you can operate the virtual cockpit. And then on the right-hand side, we've got your media and communication controls. And then we've got a little stalk here for the radar-guided cruise control. And then your light controls are actually very old school as well. It is a rotary dial, so I do like that. So yeah, when it comes to the interior design and button layout here in the Q5, I really do like it. Everything is where it should be and very much to hand. There is a nice kind of driver-centric feel to the Q5's interior design. So that's, yeah, been very pleasant as well whilst I've been using it and driving it. And then finally, we've got the infotainment system and the digital driver display, or as Audi like to call it, the virtual cockpit. Now the infotainment system is a 10.1-inch screen. It is turned slightly towards the driver, so you do have a very driver-focused interior. You have got things such as Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, Apple CarPlay being wireless as well. And it's just a very lovely infotainment system. It's very slick, I do love the graphics, and it is very responsive. Of course, because we haven't got the old rotary dial system, it does mean that the screen is prone to smudges and fingerprints, so that's just something to be aware of there. And then we got the virtual cockpit, which is, yeah, arguably the best in class. You got loads of customization and variation in its design. You get things like Google Maps on the display as well. And there's just a huge amount of customization there. So I really do like that. You can really tailor it to how you want it. Now, sometimes, yes, you can be bombarded with a bit of information, but after a bit of time and getting used to the car and the display, you will get used to it whilst you're driving, and you'll find the setting that you'll be happy with. So yeah, when it comes to the interior up front of the Audi Q5, it is a very lovely place to be, very comfortable. But yes, with the fact that you've got manual adjustment in the seats, especially for a car of this price, there are rivals out there which come with a little bit more standard equipment, which could be a bit more tempting as well. But it's definitely a very lovely place to be, and having done a long drive in the Q5, I can tell you now as well, it's very comfortable. And on that note, I think it's time we leave the front of the Q5 and see what it's like in the back. Sat in the back of the Q5, it's actually very comfortable and spacious back here, and should be fine for a couple of adults on a medium to long journey. Now that driver's seat is set to my driving position. I'm 5'7" tall and 5'7" wide, and as you can see, I've got a good amount of knee room, and headroom is okay as well. You could possibly get 2 6-footers sat in the back of the Q5 Sportback, and they should be okay. They might just find their head rubbing against the roof lining. Now, I wouldn't recommend getting 3 adults in the back here because you've got a massive transmission tunnel coming through the back, and actually I wouldn't recommend getting 3 kids back here either. 2 should suffice. Now, speaking of kids, we have got ISOFIX supports on the outer seats, and in typical Volkswagen Group fashion, we have got a plastic cover that comes off, so that's easy to break or lose, so just be aware of that. I will also mention that the front passenger seat also does come with ISOFIX support, so that's very handy. Now, when it comes to cubby spaces, we've got some decent sized door pockets. Again, you can get a medium, possibly even large sized bottle of drink in there, but this time they're not lined with any fabric or rubber, so loose items will make some noise in there. We have got our aeroplane style pockets on the backs of the front seats. However, they are part of the storage pack, so just be aware of that. And then we have got our centre armrest, which comes down, and that unveils a couple of extra cup holders here. Now, they are quite small, so I will mention that. But we have also got some through loading into the back seat, so that is very handy because these seats are a 40-20-40 split. So that is very useful. And then when it comes to features, we have got things like tri-zone climate control. We've got 2 USB-A charging inputs and a 12-volt socket. I do believe those USB-A chargers are actually an optional extra as well. But really, that's about it back here. We haven't got any heated outer seats or any blinds or anything like that, although these windows are very heavily tinted, and they do actually still allow a bit of light in because they are of a really big size. Now, they don't open all the way down, but I can still rest my arm on top of the door frame if I want to relax on a long journey. So yeah, when it comes to the kind of rear passenger space in the Sportback, it's actually not too bad. However, if you are going to have tall rear passengers on a regular basis, I'd recommend looking at the main SUV version of the Q5 because you won't have the sloping roofline here that you do in the Sportback. So yeah, it's actually not too bad back here, but you know what? I think it's time we see what it's like in the boot. Opening the boot on the Q5 Sportback presents you with 510 litres of space, which is actually a very decent boot capacity. It does beat the likes of the Volvo XC60, but does fall behind the likes of the BMW X3 and Mercedes GLC. But when you got the boot open, you are greeted by a nice wide square load area. You could possibly get 2 large suitcases in here, or definitely a few weekend bags. What I like as well, we've got a nice scuff lip here, so that's really handy. And also, there's not much of a boot lip to navigate over. So that should be absolutely fine for a dog jumping in and out of the car, or loading and unloading of heavy objects into the back of the Q5. Now, it's not devoid of features either. We've got some very sturdy tethering hooks. We've got a couple of handles to get the rear seats down. We've also got a shopping hook as well, and some netted areas each side of the boot. I will mention that this particular car has got the storage pack added to it. So we have got a luggage strap as well. I do like as well these LED strip lights to really illuminate the boot area at night. Now, underneath the boot floor, we have got a little bit of additional space. However, because I've got the Bang & Olufsen sound system, it is taken up with the subwoofer, and there are a couple of extra kind of components here as well for another optional extra fitted to this car, and that is, we got the tow bar added to this particular Q5. Now, yes, you have to kind of give it a little bit of encouragement. Oh, there you go, to help the Q5 get it up. It is getting on a bit in years, but there you go, and I'll put the towing capabilities on screen for you now. So yeah, when it comes to the boot area of the Q5 Sportback, it is actually very handy. It's only about 10 litres less than the regular SUV version of the Q5. However, there are a couple of little niggles. Number one, you can't put the tonneau cover underneath the boot floor, and number two, if I do want to put the rear seats down, yeah, I've got to I got to do that manually. But other than that, it's actually a very decent boot capacity. And on that note, I think it's time we take this Q5 for a drive and see what it's like on the road. So once you start driving the Q5, first impressions are very positive. You do quickly realise why the Q5 has been so successful over the years. It just drives really lovely, feels well screwed together, and just feels like a very good family or executive SUV. Now, because this is a mid-sized SUV, when it comes to visibility, it's actually really good. I'm sat nice and high. I got a great commanding view of the road ahead. The A-pillars are not too thick, and I've not actually had myself looking around them at any junctions, which is a blessing. The wing mirrors are a really lovely size and shape, but I don't have blind spot monitoring. No, I have to add a pack to the car as an optional extra in order to get them, which is a bit disappointing. And then if I look over my shoulder, I actually find that the C-pillar is not too thick either, and rear visibility is very good. I've got a nice big rear screen, and the rear headrests don't obstruct my view. So when it comes to all-round visibility, I'm actually very impressed by it. I'm just disappointed that I don't have blind spot monitoring as standard, but the wing mirrors are of a really lovely size and shape. And the other thing I have noticed when you start driving the Q5, there's a weird kind of noise that's in here. It kind of feels like I'm in a jet airliner. It's just kind of a bit of background noise. Now, it's not intrusive, but it is there. So it's just something to let you guys know about. But I'll be honest, when you've got the sound system going and everything, it very quickly disappears. But if you are driving in silence, yeah, you have got that kind of background noise. I think it's tyre noise. I'm not quite sure. It just kind of, like I said, feels like I'm in an airliner, which is nice. Now, firstly, there are two body styles to choose from in the Q5 range. There is the standard SUV and the Sportback, which is what I've got here. And I'll be honest, I'd recommend going for the standard SUV. Firstly, it's a little bit cheaper. Secondly, I actually think it looks better than the Sportback. Like I said earlier, this is the first time I actually think Audi have got the styling wrong on one of their Sportback SUVs. And thirdly, you get a teeny tiny bit of extra boot space, and I do mean tiny, like 10 litres. But yeah, that would be my kind of personal opinion. You save yourself a little bit of money, but you get yourself, I personally think, a better looking car. But as I said, let me know in the comments section below. And then when it comes to trim levels, there are 3 available. There's the entry-level Sport, the mid-trim S-Line, which is what I've got here, and the top-of-the-range Black Edition. Now, if you want all the kind of black inserts and everything to the exterior and interior and of the car and that, then by all means go for the Black Edition. But personally, I would recommend just simply going for the S-Line, because that is really the go-to spec with any kind of Audi model lineup. And with that, you get a good amount of standard kit. Of course, in typical Audi fashion, you do need to add some option packs to the car. But what really, it does vex me a little bit, is that I have got the driver assist pack, but it doesn't come with blind spot monitoring. I don't understand that. It's, you know, it's a driver assistance package. That would help me, that would assist me. But no, you have to get the Tour pack in order to get the blind spot monitoring. So I do think Audi have been a bit cheeky there. And I have got things like self-parking on this Q5, and I would happily sacrifice that for blind spot with the kind of technology pack and the driver assistance pack. But that's just me. But yeah, when it comes to the trim levels in the Q5 range, definitely look at the S-Line as your go-to, and like I said, just add some packs on top of it. Now, when it comes to powering the Q5, there are 3 engines available, 2 petrols and a diesel, and they are kind of split into 2 sections. So the diesel and one of the petrols are mild hybrids, and the other petrol is a full plug-in hybrid. Now, at the heart of the Q5, it would be a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, and that's either petrol or diesel. So with this diesel, I have got around 201 brake horsepower, around 400 newton meters of torque, and all cars get a 7-speed S-tronic gearbox, as well as Quattro all-wheel drive. So when it comes to performance in this 2-litre diesel, 0 to 62, it takes around 7.6 seconds, which I actually think is pretty respectable for this type of car. And it is actually a very nice setup with the gearbox, all-wheel drive and that engine. Now, you can definitely tell as well that this car is meant to be on the motorways doing long distance cruises, because it just settles down very quickly, and the engine noise is just, yeah, you hear it at low speed, but the faster you go, it just, yeah, quietens down and disappears. Now, of course, you're probably thinking about, you know, this being a diesel economy. So Audi claim that this S-Line 2-litre diesel with the Quattro, the S-tronic gearbox and everything on a combined WLTP cycle will do around 42.8 miles per gallon. And I'm sorry, Audi, but you really are selling yourselves short. Because on the day I had this car delivered, it had a full tank, around 500 miles of range on the tank as well, but I had to do a 200-mile drive, and, well, I got way above that. In fact, on a couple of occasions, I was pretty much touching 50 mpg. I was really impressed by that. But when I did the return leg of the journey, so another 200 miles back, I actually averaged, when I got home, around 48.5 miles per gallon. And I actually think that is a very respectable figure to get from a family SUV with the all-wheel drive system in a diesel. I actually am impressed by that. So Audi, you've got to do some more testing with your WLTP and your economy figures, because I absolutely annihilated that 42 miles per gallon. And what I loved as well is that I did a 400-mile round trip, and on the tripometer, on the trip computer, I'd only used about 100 miles or 150 miles, sorry, range. So I was really impressed by that. And like I said, the diesel engine itself is just a really lovely engine. Of course, being an Audi engine, it's tried and tested, and it just loves being on the motorway. It is a very lovely engine. I will, of course, put the rest of the figures for the petrols, because they do have more performance. Again, they have got the Quattro all-wheel drive, they have got the 7-speed S-tronic, but yes, economy is much less, especially in the mild hybrid version. Of course, you go for the plug-in one, you get those kind of mad, ridiculous figures of 155 miles per gallon, which, I don't know, I'd be keen to have a go at and see how close I can get to that. But yeah, this diesel, it really is a lovely engine and very frugal as well. So what about the Q5's ride and refinement? Well, I'm on a bit of a bumpy road, so it's not the smoothest out there, and I've got the car in comfort mode. Now, at lower speed, it can feel a little bit fidgety. You can feel those bumps and imperfections come into the cabin. But like I said, this car just feels at home on the motorway. So the faster you go, the more it settles down and becomes a brilliant cruiser. So I'm now on a straight bit of road. I've got the cruise control on, and that's 60. I've still got it in comfort mode, so I can feel a couple of the little bumps coming in because I know this is not a smooth road, but do you know what? It's dealing with them really well. On the motorway, this really does settle down and enjoy being a cruiser. And then as well, the refinement levels. I got a little bit of road noise coming into the cabin. Can't hear the engine. Hardly any wind noise off the wing mirror and A-pillar. It's really impressive. And by the way, I didn't slow down there. That was actually the car doing it because it's using the sat-nav to see bends in the road. My foot's not even on the accelerator, and now it's accelerating. And now you can get a little bit of engine noise coming into the cabin because it is kind of not accelerating hard. It's a nice gentle kind of acceleration there, but that's when you hear the engine just under a little bit of load. But like I said, as soon as it settles down, it's a brilliant cruiser. Very comfortable and very refined. Just be aware though that at low speed, yeah, the ride is a bit on the firm side and the ride can be a little bit fidgety and you can feel those bumps coming into the cabin. But like I said, at speed, it's just wonderful. I did those 400 miles in a day, or 2 days should I say, and this thing did not skip a beat. I got home and I still felt nice and relaxed and surprisingly refreshed as well. That is definitely a testament to the Audi engineers. So as I mentioned, I've got a 7-speed S-tronic automatic gearbox, and it is a really lovely gearbox. It's what we've come to expect from Audi. When you got it in drive, the changes are seamless. You can't feel them. Sometimes you can hear them, but really it's not intrusive. But you can kind of give it a bit of a pull down, put it into sport mode, so it is a bit quicker and sharper when you need it. And that also happens when you put the car into dynamic mode as well. Also, you can kind of move the gear shift across, have it in manual mode, and it is just very, very quick and responsive. We're using the flappy paddles on the steering wheel. You can as well actually use the gear stick as well and kind of go through the gears, feeling like you're in a bit of a rally car. But really, for most day-to-day driving, you're going to have it in drive mode and it just works really lovely. But in typical, like I said, Audi fashion, even if you put it into manual mode and use the flappy paddles, it is very quick and responsive. It is arguably one of the best gearboxes out there in these kind of mainstream brands. So what is the Q5's handling like? Well, I've put it into dynamic mode, and let's see what it's like in these corners. Firstly, the steering wheel feels really lovely in my hand. In typical Audi fashion, we've got the perforated leather, and actually the size and shape of it is just spot on. And by shape, I actually kind of mean thickness. But this is a really lovely SUV to drive. I know what the front wheels are doing. I feel connected to the car. I've got that confidence and security of the Quattro all-wheel drive system. And it means just for everyday driving, it's an absolute joy. It is a very lovely SUV to drive. I wouldn't say it's as sporty as something like a Porsche Macan, but it's it's responsive. In dynamic mode, there's very little roll or lean in the corners. The only thing I would say is, with this being a diesel, yeah, it doesn't feel like it should be driven hard. It should be driven in a nice, relaxed fashion. So if I do put it into comfort mode and go into these corners again, a little bit of roll and lean there, and obviously the eagerness is gone because it's no longer in dynamic mode. But yeah, it's really lovely. There's a nice weight to the steering as well, but it is light enough to make parking a doddle. However, if you don't want to park it yourself, this car has got a self-parking feature as well, which will definitely come in handy for some people. But yeah, when it comes to the handling of the Q5, it's really lovely. You do feel connected to the car. It's just very positive. You got a nice connection and great for everyday driving. I would say, because obviously there was an SQ5 available. Yeah, if you really want to kind of go to town on this car and have a sporty version, that would be the one to go for. But for everyday driving in something like this diesel version, you'll have no complaints whatsoever. It is just a very lovely all-round family SUV or executive SUV, depending on how you see it, where the ride, refinement and handling all just work brilliantly together. So with my time in the Q5, what have been some of the highlights and some of the little niggles I need to let you guys know about? Well, highlights I definitely think are the looks, and I'm not talking about the Sportback, I'm just talking about the Q5 in general. This has always been a gorgeous looking SUV, and Audi just got it spot on. The only time I think they've made a bit of a mistake was creating the Sportback version. Like I said, I prefer the regular Q5. Also, what I love as well is that this doesn't feel dated. It feels like a really lovely modern executive SUV. Just, yeah, you need to kind of change some of the option packs so that way you get kind of all the tech you want in one go, not have to buy a secondary pack. Now, one of the things I really do love on this Q5, and it is kind of showing me right now, is the pre-sense system. Now, this is something I've come across before in other Audi and Volkswagen group cars, where essentially it uses the sat-nav to let you know what's coming up. So if there's like a roundabout or a curve in the road, the car will slow down. And this also kind of goes to things like the radar-guided cruise control, where if you do change a zone, a speed zone from say a 60 to a 40, it automatically changes for you. It just does it straight away, and yeah, you don't have to put your foot on the brake. You don't have to change anything on the stalk. Even now, it's starting to slow down because it knows there's a curve in the road. And I think that is an absolutely brilliant system. And I've noticed as well that when it does kind of change speeds and either accelerates or slows down, it doesn't do it kind of afterwards, if that makes sense. It does it right on the point it changes. So if there are any sneaky policemen with their speed camera, it shouldn't catch you off guard. So that's something I really do like in the Q5. Now, in terms of, like I said, spec and things like that, one thing I am disappointed by, as I mentioned earlier, is that this is a £55,000 car and I don't have electrically adjustable seats as standard. That is a little bit disappointing. Well, actually, it's very disappointing, as there are cars out there that cost less than the Q5 but do come with more standard equipment. But I think as you know, we move on to perhaps the next generation of Q5, we might see Audi look to change that, but we'll have to kind of watch this space there. Now, other little things I have come across. So one of them is the wireless charging pad. I do love its design, I love the way it's fixed. However, it does get my phone very hot when charging, to the point where my phone will refuse to wirelessly charge until it cools down. So that's again just something else to be aware of in the Q5. But yeah, other than that, I've been massively impressed with the Q5. This is a car that hit the ground running when it was launched all the way back in 2008. It's just, yeah, I can understand why it's been a massive success for the German brand. And one other highlight I will say, and it is one that comes with the technical pack, is the Bang & Olufsen sound system. It is an absolute joy. It's a wonderful system. You can really kind of tailor the sound to how you want it. And as I've been kind of doing that long trip earlier this week, I've really had the chance to enjoy my tunes and just relax and let the car do its thing. Because like I said, with the radar guided cruise control, with all the pre-sensing and everything, it's taken a massive workload off of me in driving the car. All I had to do really is steer. So what are my thoughts on the Audi Q5 Sportback diesel SUV? Well, as a car, I completely understand why the Q5 has been so successful for Audi. It looks amazing, it drives beautifully and rides really well. And, well, Audi hit the ground running when it came out. They learned the lessons from the likes of BMW and the X3 of what not to do. And as a result, they had a car that looked great, drove really well, felt very premium, and was also perfect for the family. And as it's evolved, well, Audi have definitely kind of gone on the formula where if it ain't broke, then don't fix it. And that's why we have the car here. Now, I will say they have made a little bit of an error by creating the Sportback, because I don't think, like I've said before, aesthetically, it's as nice as its regular SUV brother. But that's going to be down to personal preference. And in terms of the diesel, when I asked earlier, does diesel still have a place, especially in family SUVs? The answer is yes. I was gobsmacked that I was able to beat the efficiency that Audi claim. I was able to do 400 miles and this thing just didn't skip a beat. It was just absolutely faultless. Yes, Audi, you do need to look at your options packages and kind of look to change them a little bit, because yeah, you can be a little bit stingy at times, but as an SUV, the Q5 I think is absolutely brilliant, and you should definitely have a look at one. And as a diesel, well, if you do lots of miles, definitely grab one. So yeah, the Audi Q5 Sportback diesel SUV I think is absolutely brilliant, but just go for the regular SUV, don't go for the Sportback. So everyone, I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Audi Q5 Sportback. As always, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell notifications icon to let you know when I, Dave the AutoBear, bring out a new video. If you've got any questions about the Q5 and my time with it, please put them down in the comments section below. And as always, don't forget to follow on things like Facebook, X and Instagram. And, well, have yourselves a wonderful day, and I will catch you all in the next video. So take care, everybody, and bye-bye.